Hello everybody, hola a todos. Hoy día voy a hacer otro videíto en inglés, así que sintonícenme. No se preocupen que otros días para los que no entienden inglés voy a contar lo mismo en español, pero creo que hoy sería un buen día para decirlo en inglés. Okay everybody, hello. My name is Saskia Antelo Mercado. I'm a Bolivian writer. And right now I'm gonna talk to you about how this book came to life, but actually it's a very long way. So many things had to happen before I started writing this book. At first, this book was written when I was living in China, and I want to tell you the story about how I got to China and how China really changed my mind and the way I see the world. It was a trip that really changed me. I think it made me grow up. I became more of an adult. I understood more people. It was wonderful, really. So I'm gonna start with you. I used to have a boyfriend when I was 18 years old, and we broke up. I always was attracted to martial arts, especially Kung Fu. It's my dream because I know there is Taekwondo, there is Karate, but for me it was Kung Fu. And the bliss was that in my university they do had Kung Fu classes, and it was twice a week, 1 hour per time. And I went twice a week, and I was like, if I really want to learn this, I have to do it somewhere where this is practiced every day. In 2 hours a week, I'm not gonna learn anything. So I searched for websites, and I chose the worst website. I was like, I want the real deal. I want a real school, not one that is made for tourists or made for holidays and to take it easy and have a good time. That's not the kind of school I was searching for. So I looked at the worst kind of website and I found one. This was when I was 18 years old. I actually turned 19 in China. And it was amazing because I had just broken up with my boyfriend. So I needed to go, I needed to relax. And I remember this school, I was like, yes, I'm on a spring break right now. Yeah, I am on break right now. So I'm gonna search for it. And I contacted the website, they sent me the paperwork, the invitation letter, the fact that it's a school recognized by the country, they are allowed to give out student visas. And I got my student visa to go to China. And I remember that day I told my mom, I'm off to China. And she's like, what, when? And I'm like, today? And yeah, I went to China. I was so not prepared for it. Seriously, I didn't exchange money. I forgot to tell my bank that I was traveling. The good thing is that a friend's boyfriend was living in China. So he was like, oh, I can pick you up from the airport. But guess what? I got lost at the airport. I ended up in some shopping mall and there was nobody, and I was so desperate. I was like, Wi-Fi, and finally I found a cafe with Wi-Fi, and I contacted him and he was like, why you didn't wait for me? And I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry. So he came and picked me up from the cafe, and he took me to a hotel, and he told me the school you're going to, it's 14 hours away from Beijing by train. So I'm gonna pick you up tomorrow. Tonight, just rest. I'm gonna pick you up tomorrow. We can buy a ticket and I will see you off. And I was like, cool. And I had a horrible experience in the hotel because while I was showering, my alarm went off. And if you are noisy, they charge you 20 yuanes more. So and they charged me. It was horrible. But then he took me to the train station, we bought the ticket, and I got on the train station, sorry. And I was so hungry because I hadn't had food since the last day because I didn't have money in cash. And I just called my bank to let them know that I was traveling. So I had no money, and I was really scared because I could pay by my card, that's true. But everything was in Chinese, so I went to a restaurant and they asked me in Chinese, and I freaked out and I left the place. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna try McDonald's because McDonald's is a Western place. So I went to McDonald's and everything was in Chinese. I didn't understood anything. It was horrible. So after that, I just took the train, and this lady was, remember in that time, it was not very common to have internet on your phone all the time, especially translators. It was really not common. So I was walking around with my little book, you know, my dictionary, and I was trying to talk to this lady. At the end, we understood each other. She was a chemistry teacher. She showed me a picture of her daughter, and she was like, "Are you hungry?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm starving." And she started to get food out of her bag. Like, first it was an egg. I was like, "Oh my God, food! I haven't eaten in 2 days, you know?" She gave me food, and then she gave me rice, and then she gave me meat. I was stuffed. I was to the point that I couldn't even, you know, like, tell her I don't want it anymore. It was delicious. And then another man got our attention because he was listening to us, so we spoke to him. And he worked for NHK, and the people were so nice. Actually, before going to China, I had a horrible perception of what China is and Chinese people. The views I had were a little bit racist. Now that I think about it, looking back, you know, it was not good. And I believe that kind of stuff. So these people started to change my view, and like, am I lucky to just meet these people, or are all Chinese people like this? So we arrived to the little town, and the Kung Fu school was 40 minutes away by taxi from that city. It was a really small city. And I was arriving, and a person had a little paper, and she didn't even have it up. It was down, like he was just talking to somebody, and I was trying to read, and I read my second name, Elena. My second name is Elena. And I read Elena, and I told him, "Excuse me." And he looked at me, he took my bag, put it in the taxi, and put me in the taxi. And I was like, am I even sure this is my pickup taxi? And you know, the whole night, I was holding on to the door while we were traveling, and I was like, if he tries doing anything to me, I'm running away. I'm gonna scream and I'm gonna run. And the 40 minutes in the taxi, I was like that, holding the door. And finally, we arrived to a place, and this man gets out, looks at the gate. It was in the middle of the night. It was like 11 o'clock, 12. It was midnight. And he yelled something in Chinese. And then this creep guy, you know, he looked wonderful, super ripped, handsome as fuck. He came out and he's like, yeah, the new student. And then they paid the taxi and they took me in. He was a teacher, and he was like, I'm teacher, because he didn't speak too much English. We had translators. And then the girl, the wife of the owner is also a Kung Fu master. She came and she was like, oh, it's okay, I will introduce you to your mate that's gonna be in the same room with you. And I was like, sure. And when we go in, she was totally naked, sleeping like this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in a real Kung Fu school. And I can tell you that I had never, ever in my entire life exercised before that. Seriously, I never ever, not even running, no gym, nothing. I had no idea what exercise was. It was horrible because the first day, the master wanted to know if I am flexible or not, because flexibility is essential for learning Kung Fu. Even if you're old, they're gonna teach you how to, you know, like do splits. Oh my God, the first time he tried me, because he told me my body was really soft and it was really easy to move, because I was laying down and he was moving one leg, like coming to my face. And he said like, wow, your body is super flex. But it was hurting me. I was in pain. And he was like, it's amazing. I'm like, please no. And he's like, oh, but you can do it. And I started crying. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It was too much. I pushed you too much. You know, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. You know what's horrible as well? That I couldn't differentiate your teachers. And at first, I had no idea. I thought we were talking to the same teacher. And my classmates were like, oh, by the way, most of my classmates were white from Europe. And they were like, oh, this master. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same one, right? And they just laughed at me. They didn't tell me like, you're mistaken, we have two masters. I had no idea. Well, actually, many nights I cried because the master will yell at me a lot, you know? He will be like, how come you still don't know how to do this? La, 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 la. And at night I would cry, but during the day I had the time of my life. I can tell you, seriously. And you know how this changed my life? This master, he never went to school. He never went to high school, you know? he directly studied in the Shaolin Temple, which is really hard to get in. And I love his story because he's, I think, 24th, something like that, if I can remember correctly. He was a Kung Fu master, his father was a Kung Fu master, his grandfather, all of his family are graduated from the Shaolin Temple. Not any temple, not any place, the Shaolin one. And I love it. When he was 8 years old, he told his father, I'm ready to go into the temple. And his father was like, no way, you're too young, not yet. And he was like, I'm gonna starve myself until you let me go. And a child of 8 years old, he actually did. He didn't eat for 3 days, and his parents were like, okay, if you're this strong-willed, then you're ready to go. And they sent him, and this master, he was chosen by, and all of this story is not only because he told me, okay, because, oh, he's making it up. No, it comes from reliable sources, like the government. And he was so good at it, you know, so good at it, that he was chosen to be trained one to one, because usually it's like 10 with one master, but for him they made him more. And he was graduated, and he used to work in another school, and in there he met his wife. She was a translator in that school. Then they got married, they left that school, and they created their own school. And in this school I really learned a lot about life, because in my life, my mommy always told me that if you don't go to university, you're a nobody, you cannot live. Nobody who doesn't study cannot survive. That's the mindset I had. But I didn't realize that it's not only school studying, Kung Fu studying is also studying. And that really opened my mind. I realized you don't need to have a university degree to be someone and to do things right, because this man who never went to university was doing everything right. He was keeping his family safe, he was teaching, he was letting his culture into other people. He was doing an amazing job without going to university. So for me, that was a shock. I know it sounds stupid because you say like it's obvious, but to me it wasn't. I really thought that if you didn't go to uni, you couldn't survive. You will never be anyone. And this man, he's someone, you know. I really admire him. And that was how much China changed my mind in that kind of thing. But also my view on Chinese people. I've never met most kinder people than Chinese people. I've traveled all over the world, and I can tell you the kindest, the nicest ones are Chinese people. And that really surprised me, because the views I had before going to China was that they are dirty, they yell a lot, they are bad people. And you know what? That's completely untrue. It really like crushed all those beliefs I used to have about China. It was wonderful. It really changed my view of the world. I stayed there 2 months. I also traveled to Beijing. I had the time of my life. I was going to Beijing to rest a little bit of the Kung Fu. You know what my plan was? My plan in Beijing was to be there, sleep every day, every night, just rest. The problem is that the place I was staying in, the only place that had Wi-Fi was the common area. So if I wanted to connect, I needed to go there. And every time I went there, I met a new friend. And at first they were like, I remember it was at midnight. They were like, oh, tomorrow morning we're going to go to see the Chinese wall. Do you want to come? And I'm like, but it's like 12. And they were like, oh, but the trip is at 6 and you can pay now. And actually, yeah, they took me to the reception. And I paid 200 yuan that moment. And at 6 a.m., I was off to the Chinese wall. We came back, and my money wasn't working, my car wasn't working, and these people were like, oh, I can lend you 100, and I would lend you another 100, and I was like, how can you trust me? And they were like, you seem trustworthy. And I was amazed, because it took 1 day for my car to work, and obviously I paid them back. And in that time in Beijing, I never rested, because they will even come knocking my door, and they were like, Saskia, let's go. I met amazing people there. Really, they took me dinner, they took me to the markets to eat crickets, to eat like real weird stuff. And I think that was a blessing from the universe, you know, me meeting those people. And most of us, we were traveling alone. I was alone, and they too, but they did have plans. I had no plans. I wanted to sleep. That was my plan. And they had so many plans, and they put me into their plans. And I had the best week of my life. I can tell you, man, I had fun. And that was my first time in China. So years later, I finished university in the UK. I moved to Germany to do a master's degree. And in Germany, I was having a really tough time, a really hard time. Germans can be cute, but also they can be like mean. And I was like, I need to be around good people. I'm so stressed. I need good things. I need good people. And I remember China. I was like, in China, the people were the kindest I had ever met. I was like, you know what? I'm off to China. So I did the same. I contacted the school. I told them I wanted to go back. The same school. And now it was bigger. They moved to a new place. Like, it was amazing. Not the little place I went to. The place, it was really small. Now it was gigantic. And I was like, sure. I want to go back to China. They were like, sure, you can come. And I went there and I was like, I need to get a job because I feel like I lose all my savings. I'm out. What am I going to do? So I created my CV. At the time, I didn't have much. I only had like two jobs, like summer jobs. I was contacted by people who were searching for English teachers. And I was like, I want to do it. And they were like, oh, but you have to do a course. If you don't do the course, you cannot do it. And it takes like 1 year. So I was like, okay, I will do the course. I took the course. Thank goodness I found it when it was on discount. Because it's so much more expensive. I'm so lucky, really. And I did all the course online. I think I finished it 6-7 months. And then I told the person, I have my little degree of TEFL teaching. And they were like, oh, now I can help you find a job. So I had to make a video explaining how I teach. And I still couldn't find a job. And then I moved to another city because I needed fresh air. And I can tell you, Chinese people were the kindest no matter the city. And when I was living in that other city, finally a job offer came to me. So I had to go to Hong Kong. You know why Hong Kong? Because Hong Kong allows people from Bolivia without a visa. So I went to Hong Kong. I did my working visa for mainland China. And then I went back to China and I started my new job. China completely changed my mind. Seriously, I love it so much. But you know, before I started the job, I also started something else. I was really far away and I love my country. I love my city. I love my people. I love my mother. And I felt so far away. I was like, I'm in China. What can I do? You know, what can I do to still have my people, my city, my culture with me? And I was like, I'm gonna write a book. I don't know how it happened, but it illuminated on me. It was like, you're gonna write a book about something about your culture. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And in China, while I was searching for a job, when I was jobless, I started writing this book, this baby you have here, this beauty, The Journey of a Water God, the Jichi. This was started in China because I really wanted to bring back something from my country to the rest of the world. And I think the fact that it's in English can truly like break from barriers than just Spanish, you know? And all of the half of the first book was written in China. Even when I had a job, you know, on my free days, I will go to Starbucks. I will sit there and write at least 1 page per day. I know it's really slow. You know what I do now? Now I do at least 1 chapter per day, which is completely different. That's like 5 pages, and before it was like at least 1 page. And that's how The Journey of a Water God was born. Because I was so far away and I still love my culture. And for me, this book was a way of showing you all what I am made of. You know, like, I know it was a really long story. I spoke about China because China truly changed my mind. And this book was started in China. So I think if I have to speak about how this book became to be, it's because I think I also have to explain how this country changed my life, how these people changed my view of people and the world. Really, I love them so much. I think they're wonderful people, and if given the opportunity, I would absolutely go back to work there. And if you have any question, you can like write it on my wall, or you can write it in the comments here. I'm gonna answer. I want us to be friends. I will be trying to do a live, at least, I don't know, I'm hoping for once a day, but that seems a little bit too far, you know. Hello, Irina Heredia says, how much is the book and where can I find it? Dear, the book is 120 Bolivianos. You can find it online on $16. If you are in Bolivia, you can directly contact me and I will answer you. I can send it to your home. There's no problem, there's no charge. We do it for free because we want to expand the book, you know. And also, if you want it online, you can put in Google The Journey of a Water God, or you can put my name, Saskia Antelo Mercado, and you will find it. Don't worry, it's on Amazon, it's in Dorrance Publishing, depends on the part of the world you're in. I can assure you, you can find it online. But if you have any question, or you want to get it and you live in Bolivia, just contact me, okay? Any questions, anybody? I see there are a few people here. Greetings, darling. Okay, so that's my story of how China changed my life, and it helped me begin with this book. If you have any questions, we can talk. I love talking about China, so I'm waiting for you guys. I hope we can do this live more often. Like I told you, I will try to do once a day, but some days in Spanish, some days in English, you know? Thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. It's really cold here, so if you're here, please warm up so you don't get sick. See you!